Officer Wilburne smirked as she slammed the handcuffs onto black man's wrists. Military ID? Sure, she scoffed. She had no idea who Lieutenant General Carlton Hayes really was, or that one phone call would bring the Pentagon to this Georgia backroad. Lieutenant General Carlton Hayes had navigated the stretch of Highway 280 between Albany and Americus, Georgia countless times. After 3 combat tours and commanding thousands of troops, a simple drive through his home state should have been the easiest part of his week. The afternoon sun beat down on his unmarked sedan as he pulled onto a gravel shoulder to recalibrate his GPS. Hayes wore civilian clothes, a crisp navy polo and khaki slacks, his 3-star general's jacket neatly folded in the backseat. 30 years of military service had taught him precision, even in the smallest details. He needed just 2 minutes to reset his navigation system, the military-grade encrypted device requiring his full attention. The crunch of tires on gravel broke his concentration. In his rear-view mirror, Hayes spotted a patrol car, lights already flashing though no siren had sounded. The vehicle was weathered. Lee County Sheriff, painted on its side in fading letters. Officer Tracy Wilburne emerged, aviator sunglasses masking her eyes, blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. Her hand rested on her holstered weapon as she approached. Not with caution, but with unwarranted aggression. She rapped sharply on his window. "What are you doing out here?" No greeting, no professional courtesy. "Just checking my GPS, officer." Hayes replied evenly, decades of military discipline evident in his measured tone. Wilburne's eyes narrowed as she scanned the vehicle interior. "Step out of the car." "May I ask why?" "I've simply pulled over to check directions." "You're on private property. This is a known dumping area." Her voice hardened. "And you fit the profile." Hayes' expression remained neutral, though his mind registered the implied meaning. This wasn't about dumping. This was about something else entirely. A pickup truck slowed on the highway. A family inside watched with growing concern as the situation unfolded in front of them. "I'll comply," Hayes said calmly, "but I want to be clear that I've done nothing wrong." "That's not for you to decide," Wilburne snapped, unclipping her holster. Hayes stepped out with military precision, smooth, controlled movements honed through decades of service. His ramrod-straight posture and disciplined demeanor were unmistakable to anyone familiar with military bearing, but Officer Wilburne either didn't notice or didn't care. "Ma'am, I'm a federal officer," Hayes stated firmly. "My identification is in my vehicle. Please allow me to retrieve it. Hands on the trunk. Now." Wilburne grabbed his arm, turning him forcefully toward the car. Hayes didn't resist. The Army had taught him that sometimes the most powerful response was controlled restraint. He placed his palms flat against the sun-warmed metal as instructed. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. From the road, the pickup had now stopped. A teenager in the back seat held up his phone, recording. His father stepped out, arms crossed, watching with narrowed eyes. No one intervened, but the silent witnesses created a palpable tension. "I'm not going to repeat myself," Wilburne barked, one hand still hovering near her weapon. "You're being detained." Hayes remained motionless, his breathing steady. "I respectfully request that you call your supervisor or allow me to retrieve my identification. I'm Lieutenant General Carlton Hayes, United States Army." Wilburne scoffed. "Sure you are. And I'm the Secretary of Defense." The teenager recording had edged closer, his father beside him now. The boy's eyes widened as he zoomed in on Hayes' car, spotting the military jacket in the back seat. "Dad," he whispered, "that jacket has stars on it." Wilburne radioed dispatch, her voice low but audible. "Suspicious male, possibly armed." Hayes turned his head slightly. "I'm not carrying a weapon, officer. You're military, right?" Wilburne's tone dripped with disdain. "You people usually are." Hayes' expression tightened almost imperceptibly at the phrase, "you people," but his military discipline held firm. He said nothing, knowing that the fastest way to defuse arrogance was to let it collapse under its own weight. The afternoon heat intensified both the temperature and the tension. Officer Wilburne paced behind Hayes, her boots crunching on gravel with each step. More vehicles had pulled over, their occupants silently witnessing the scene unfolding. Phones recorded from every angle. You're escalating something unnecessarily. Hayes said evenly. You don't tell me how to do my job, she snapped. I'm asking you to do it by the book. Wilburne stepped closer, her voice dangerously low. Are you threatening me? No, ma'am. I'm advising you. His military discipline was evident in every measured word. Without warning, she reached for his back pocket and yanked out his wallet. She flipped through it carelessly until she froze at a particular card. A Pentagon-issued Level 4 security clearance badge with his name and rank clearly displayed beneath the Department of Defense seal. She stared at it, then at him. Where'd you get this? I earned it over 30 years of service. No emotion colored his voice, just simple facts. Wilburne's jaw tightened, but she didn't retreat. Her pride wouldn't allow it. You could have just said who you were from the start. I attempted to, officer. Her face flushed deep red. You still can't park here. I wasn't parking. I pulled over temporarily to adjust my navigation system. In the distance, a siren wailed, backup responding to Wilburne's earlier call. The small crowd of bystanders had grown to nearly a dozen people. The teenager who had first noticed Hayes' military jacket had moved closer, his father beside him, both still recording. You're interfering with lawful investigation, Wilburne insisted, desperation creeping into her voice as she realized she might be losing control of the situation. I'm standing here unarmed and cooperating, Hayes replied. Without warning, Wilburne grabbed his wrist and twisted it behind his back. The handcuffs clicked shut with deliberate force, biting into his skin. Gasps erupted from the roadside audience. The teenager whispered something to his father, who nodded grimly and adjusted his phone to capture a better angle. Everything is being recorded, Hayes said quietly. You think that matters? Wilburne hissed into his ear. It always does. Sooner or later. Hayes' voice remained steady as she pushed him toward her cruiser. The teenager's father called out, You're going to regret this, officer. Mind your business, sir. Wilburne shouted back. I am, the man replied calmly. This is my business now. Wilburne shoved Hayes into the back seat and slammed the door. In the cruiser, Hayes sat perfectly still, breathing methodically as he had done in combat zones when situations spiraled beyond his control. 1 breath. 2. 3. This wasn't his first encounter with prejudice, but it was perhaps the most blatant. 2 more patrol cars pulled up behind Wilburne's cruiser, one from the county sheriff's office, another from State Patrol. Deputy Lamar Boyd stepped out, a tall black man with salt and pepper beard in a deliberate, unhurried manner. Boyd approached Wilburne first, who met him halfway, arms crossed offensively. Their conversation wasn't audible from inside the cruiser, but Wilburne's animated gestures told their own story. Boyd glanced toward Hayes, his expression changing subtly as he took in the scene. He approached the cruiser and opened the back door. Sir, may I ask your name? Lieutenant General Carlton Hayes, United States Army. Boyd blinked, his professional demeanor momentarily broken by surprise. Did Officer Wilburne check your identification? She had it in her hand. Boyd nodded once and shut the door. He returned to Wilburne, their conversation now more intense. The deputy's posture had changed, more authoritative, less deferential. Meanwhile, the teenager had moved to the edge of the gathering crowd, pointing his camera at Hayes' car. You can see the Army jacket in the back seat, he narrated for his video. It has General stars on it. Boyd returned to the cruiser and opened the door again. Sir, is there anyone you'd like to call? Hayes nodded. Yes, one person. Without hesitation, Boyd pulled out his personal phone and handed it over. Hayes took in his cuffed hands and dialed a number from memory. After 2 rings, a crisp voice answered. Major Kendall speaking. This is General Carlton Hayes. I'm being unlawfully detained by local law enforcement in Schley County, Georgia. I'm currently handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser. I need verification sent immediately. His voice was calm, professional. The same tone he'd use requesting air support in a combat zone. A brief pause, then, General Hayes, are you secure? For now. Officer failed to follow protocol. There are multiple bystanders recording. Understood. alerting Pentagon liaison to DHS and military police immediately. Stay on the line. The call transferred. A new voice. Commander Reeves here. We're tracking your coordinates. Local authorities will be contacted within 10 minutes. Hang tight, sir. Thank you. Hayes ended the call and handed the phone back to Deputy Boyd, who took it with a respectful nod. The sound of vehicles approaching drew everyone's attention. 3 unmarked black SUVs with government plates rolled onto the shoulder, their tinted windows in precise formation, leaving no doubt about their federal origin. Officer Wilburne's confident demeanor visibly faltered. She stepped back from her cruiser, hand instinctively moving toward her weapon before thinking better of it. From the lead vehicle emerged Colonel Errol Gaines in full Army dress uniform, ribbons and medals gleaming in the Georgia sun. 2 men in dark suits with earpieces flanked him as they approached. Colonel Gaines walked directly to the cruiser, ignoring Wilburne completely. He opened the back door himself. "General Hayes," he said, his voice controlled but tense. "Are you all right, sir?" "Fine, Colonel," Hayes replied. "Just bruised pride." Gaines nodded. "We've got it from here." He turned to Deputy Boyd. "Who's in charge of the scene?" Boyd gestured toward Wilburne. Officer Wilburne initiated the stop. "I arrived 10 minutes ago." Gaines approached Wilburne, who straightened her posture in a belated attempt at professionalism. "Do you know who that man is?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. "He didn't provide proper identification," she stammered. "I was acting on suspicion." He refused to comply. "He gave you his name and rank," Gaines countered. "You had his federal ID in your possession. That's a 3-star general you placed in handcuffs." The color drained from Wilburne's face as the full magnitude of her error began to sink in. "I suggest you don't say another word," Gaines added. "This incident is being reported to your department, your sheriff, and the state attorney general." Deputy Boyd spoke quietly into his radio, requesting the county sheriff's presence. Colonel Gaines returned to the cruiser and unlocked Hayes' handcuffs himself. The general stepped out, rubbing his wrist where the metal had cut into his skin. The crowd had grown larger, word spreading through cars passing on the highway. Some had pulled over, joining the silent witnesses. Phones continued recording from every angle. "Sir," Colonel Gaines asked Hayes, "would you like to press charges?" Hayes looked at Wilburne, then at the crowd behind her. Phones were still rolling. His voice was measured when he spoke. "Not yet. I want her held accountable through proper channels. Let the public see it." Sheriff Roger Nix arrived 20 minutes later, his truck kicking up dust as it rolled to a stop. A tall man in his 60s with broad shoulders and a noticeable limp, he surveyed the scene, the federal SUVs, the silent officer, the general standing tall beside Colonel Gaines, before exiting his vehicle. "Somebody want to tell me what the hell is going on out here?" he asked, his deep southern drawl carrying authority without shouting. Colonel Gaines stepped forward. "Sheriff Nix, I'm Colonel Errol Gaines with the Department of the Army. One of your officers unlawfully detained Lieutenant General Hayes after he identified himself." Nix turned to Wilburne. "Tracy, that true?" He refused to comply, she began, voice wavering. His vehicle was suspicious. "I follow department procedure." "Did you run his tags?" Sheriff Nix asked. "No, Did you verify the ID he showed you?" "I didn't think it was real." Nix shook his head slowly. "Didn't think it was real." He let the words hang in the air. "Tracy, this man could have your badge with one call, and he hasn't. That alone should tell you something." He approached Hayes, extending his hand. "General, my deepest apologies for what happened on my watch. I don't have words strong enough." Hayes shook it firmly. "Appreciated, Sheriff, but what happens next isn't about me. It's about what she did when she thought no one important was watching." The sheriff looked over his shoulder at the crowd. "Well, plenty of folks saw, and I got a feeling a lot more will." Colonel Gaines nodded. "We'll be filing a formal complaint through DOJ channels. Her conduct wasn't just reckless, it was illegal." Sheriff Nix sighed heavily. "Tracy, I'm putting you on immediate administrative leave. Hand over your badge and firearm." Wilburne stood frozen. "Sheriff, that's not a request." With trembling hands, she surrendered her badge and gun. Nix addressed the crowd, holding up Wilburne's badge. "We'll let the investigators finish this, but let me be clear. This ain't how we treat people in my county. I don't care who you are. No one deserves what I saw in those videos." The teenager who had first started recording stepped forward. "Sir, do you want me to send you a copy?" Sheriff Nix nodded. "I'd appreciate that, son. And thank you for filming." By the next morning, the footage had gone viral. What began as a 30-second clip uploaded by 16-year-old Miles Riordan became a 2-minute compilation viewed over 2 million times in less than 12 hours. The hashtag proliferated. Hashtag General Hayes, hashtag Slay County, hashtag profiling on camera. News vans lined Highway 280 by noon, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. General Hayes had quietly left the scene the night before, choosing not to speak publicly. No press conference, no angry interview, just a private call to his wife followed by a silent drive to Fort Benning. The sheriff's office released a sterile statement. "We are aware of the incident involving Officer Tracy Wilburne and a motorist. The matter is under internal investigation." They omitted that the motorist had commanded more troops than their entire department combined. By the second day, protests formed outside the sheriff's office. Veterans stood front and center, holding photos of Hayes in uniform, Hayes receiving medals, Hayes leading troops. Reporters uncovered Wilburne's history. 3 formal complaints in 2 years, all quietly dismissed. 2 involved black drivers. The third, a single mother who claimed Wilburne followed her home and issued a citation for improper attitude. Meanwhile, General Hayes maintained his dignified silence. His only public comment came during a small veterans forum in Columbus, Georgia. "I've faced hostility on foreign soil, but I've never been made to feel smaller than I did on that roadside. However, I won't carry anger. What this country needs is accountability and honesty. We can't fix what we pretend doesn't exist." For days later, Sheriff Nix announced Wilburne's termination, citing excessive force, protocol violations, and abuse of authority. 3 weeks later, General Hayes addressed a leadership conference in Tallahassee. "No uniform today, just a simple dark suit. I want to talk about restraint," he began. "Not silence, not passivity, real restraint. The kind that requires strength. When you're wronged, everything in you wants to hit back. But power isn't measured by how hard you hit. It's measured by how much you choose not to." He paused, scanning the audience. "You can't control how people see you, but you can control how you respond when they get it wrong. And that choice, that's where real power lives. If this story moved you, share it. Speak up when something feels wrong. Because sometimes the strongest protest is standing tall while the world watches."